Hello, I'm Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub, taking you beyond the boundaries of who you believe yourself to be and opening up to new possibilities. What gives me a buzz is to make people think and feel differently, to experience the world differently. I love learning, and as a seeker and explorer, I've travelled far and wide, spending over 30 years studying with many wonderful teachers and masters, learning to utilise many different tools, many different techniques to create rapid shifts. I'm the author of You, the Divine Genius, and my passion, my desire, is to create opportunities for an expansion of awareness and consciousness, to allow you to step into a fuller focus of who you really are. This podcast is an advocate for awakening, encouragement, and supporting the development of your superhuman abilities. Just imagine how your life would change if you lived in an open state of awareness where anything is possible. Are you afraid of the dark? Maybe as a child you wondered if a scary monster was going to leap out from under the bed or out of the cupboard. I know I did. In fact, until about 14 years ago, I'll admit I always slept with a nightlight, and somehow that all stopped when I moved into my current home. Now, when I shared with friends that I was going to a darkroom retreat, where I would spend 9 days and 9 nights in total darkness, many of them were horrified and thought me very brave. I had no idea that so many people are actually afraid and fear the dark. Yet, just for a moment, consider that if you are afraid of the dark, what are you really afraid of? Are you afraid of looking within? Because the dark room offers that gift, the opportunity to switch off from external stimulation and really turn your attention and focus within, to spend time with you, to really get to look deeply, deeply within. And let me tell you, it's a profound experience. In this episode, I'll be talking about the ancient tradition of Darkroom Technology and sharing my darkroom source feeding experience that took place in Thailand. And perhaps it will inspire you to take some time away, to switch off, far from the maddening crowds and external stimulation, and enjoy silence, stillness, and solitude. Once upon a time, there lived a tribe of people who loved the light. As soon as the sun rose every morning, they were up to welcome it, singing songs of celebration for the light. And when the sun went down each evening, they sang other songs, sad songs, songs of missing the light of the sun, for they didn't love the darkness. In fact, they would hurry to bed, since they could only bear the darkness when they were asleep, and even then, total darkness was frightening to them, and so they always kept a fire burning in every room. The people's dearest wish was that the sun wouldn't set in the evening, that darkness would never fall. Now in this land were born 2 remarkable children, twins, a girl who seemed to shine from within. Everything seemed brighter when she was around, and the people loved her very much. The other, a boy, who seemed to bring darkness with him. Everything seemed a little dimmer, and the people really didn't like him. In fact, they feared him because he reminded them of the great darkness of night. Now, as they grew, it became clear that these children were special. In fact, they were magical children. The girl had the power to bring life back when it was harmed or lost. She could heal broken bones, bring plants and animals back to life, and even make the crops grow faster and larger and fuller. The boy, on the other hand, had the power to calm and quiet anything, helping his family go to sleep more quickly, thus saving them from the fear of the darkness. He could calm animals when they were frightened and make them still. And he could even calm storms and winds and rains. He could bring anything to stillness. Now one day, the people decided to ask the girl for a favor. They asked her to see if her magic could hold the sun in the sky and stop the night from coming. While the girl was reluctant, she finally gave in. And she asked the sun to stop, to stay right at the top of the sky forever. And guess what? It did. The people were overjoyed and there was a big celebration. And for the first few weeks, everyone was happy, everyone was content. But very soon the people began to get tired because although they always had slept with a fire to ward off the darkness, sleeping in the full light of the sun was another thing altogether. They tossed and turned and woke up constantly. And after a month, the exhausted, frustrated people began to see that this constant sunlight was actually a problem, and they began to wish for the sun to move in the sky once more. So they went and asked the girl to ask the sun to move again. However, although she asked many, many times, the sun just stayed still. It didn't move from its position at all. It was at that moment that the boy stepped forward and said he would ask the sun to move. And so it was within 10 minutes, the sun began rushing forward towards the western horizon, and it became dark once more. Now, because it happened so quickly, the people were caught off guard with no fires lit and nothing with them to light their way, so they stumbled and fell until one of the people looked up and saw the stars for the first time because they'd never been outside at night before. They'd never experienced the beauty of a sky full of stars. They all stopped hurrying toward their homes and just stood and stared in wonder. It was the first time they'd really appreciated the darkness. Of course, eventually the sun rose again, and as it did, the people got out of their beds and sang their songs to celebrate the coming of light. But at the end of the day, as the sun began to sink towards the horizon, instead of singing sad songs, they began singing a new song, a slow, quiet song of thanksgiving for the darkness, as they remembered that light and darkness are best in balance. You know, there's a tendency in society today and in many traditions to label light as good while darkness is regarded as bad or evil. Yet, you know, the darkness offers many gifts that have been either lost or overlooked, and as the story highlights, there needs to be a balance. In many indigenous cultures, it's darkness that's seen as the light of the ancestors and worshipped, and it's believed that only in darkness can certain elements be revealed. Many ceremonies and rituals are actually only conducted after sunset and during the night, while myths and stories from around the globe often refer to the mystery of darkness. There's a tribe in Colombia called the Mamos. They're highly trained spiritual leaders of the indigenous people of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in Colombia, who recognize themselves as the conscious caretakers of Mother Earth. From birth, the Mamos child chosen by divination is trained to being attuned to a luna, the generative all that is spirit that generates reality. It's the source of life in which all things exist. In preparation, the child will spend a minimum training of 9 years in the dark in special caves in the Sierra or double-walled thatch huts, and only taken out at night. So the mother comes to feed the baby. She and the child are on a diet of selected food to support the process. The elders teach the young child everything they know, and if willing and found able, the apprentice is trained for a further 9 years, with puberty in between the two periods. And girls too are trained to be female mamos or ati, but most mamos today are actually male. Now, remaining for a prolonged period of time in sensory deprivation is a common practice of many indigenous cultures, often used in preparation for initiation rituals or vision quests. Although the mammoth's 18 years long training removed from daylight is rather unique and unrivaled by any civilization on this earth. The initiated mammoth is a deeply sophisticated being who understands beyond Western comprehension that without thought, nothing exists. They're the deliberate and sentient intermediaries between spirit, which they call a luna, and the material world. And they say everything that exists in material reality has its full being, its real nature, in a luna, and a luna is the transcendental ocean. In Buddhism, there are practices involving darkness related to the end of suffering, using darkness like a gestation period. And in Greece, ancient oracle sites used dark caves as temples where initiates and visitors entered into a different state of consciousness to uncover secret wisdom and knowledge. In fact, cave dwelling and darkness appear in many traditions as a route to awakening and enlightenment. In Europe, the darkroom often appeared in underground forms as a network of tunnels, in Egypt as the pyramids, in Rome as the catacombs, and by the Essenes near the Dead Sea in Israel as caves. In the Taoist tradition, caves have been used throughout the ages for higher level practices. In the Tao, the cave, the immortal mountain, the Wu Sun, represents the perfect inner alchemy chamber. Because caves contain the earliest information of life stored inside the earth, so they hold the vital essence of earth power. And the Tao says, when you go into the dark, and this becomes total, the darkness soon turns into light. So what happens when you're in complete darkness? Well, firstly, your mind begins to wander freely. After all, when you enter this primordial state, you're confronted, or should I say reunited, with your true self and divinity. It's as if you've returned to the womb, or the cave of creation, as I prefer to call it. And when you're in complete darkness, and when I say that, I mean there's no difference whether your eyes are open or closed. It really is pitch black, and it's this that changes the sensory sensibilities of your body and brain. You're basically deprived of all your visual references, and as you lose connection with the external world and turn inwards, the effects of darkness shuts down major centers in the brain, depressing mental and cognitive functions in the higher brain centers. This means that emotional and feeling states are heightened as you find yourself sinking into this void of deep inner space. Mindfulness takes on a whole new meaning as everything slows down as you become free from the pressures of time and space. You're probably also aware that darkness can have various benefits for human health and well-being. For example, improved sleep. Exposure to darkness can help regulate your circadian rhythms, leading to better sleep. And darkness has also been shown to reduce inflammation in the body and have a positive impact on overall health. Some studies have claimed that spending time in the dark can actually boost creativity and problem-solving capabilities, because darkness encourages the brain to enter a more relaxed state, enhancing creativity. So darkness tends to promote feelings of relaxation, reducing your stress levels. Now, research also suggests being in complete and prolonged darkness changes the body chemistry and activates the deepest centers within the brain, and in particular, the pineal, pituitary, thalamus, and hypothalamus glands. In fact, prolonged darkness causes a synthesis of extraordinary molecules such as DMT, which induces altered states of perception. Mantak Chia is a Taoist master and the creator of the Healing Tao, Tao Yoga, Universal Healing Tao system, and the founder of Tao Garden Health Spa and Resort, located in the beautiful northern countryside of Chiang Mai, Thailand. Now, having gone in search of natural caves suitable for meditation in absolute darkness, the ones he came across were dirty, dusty, noisy, and the air quality was poor. pristine silence was just not to be found, and after much research, he constructed the Tao Garden Darkness building, enclosed and encased in a light and soundproof sheath. The building is constructed of bricks made from the red earth of Thailand, containing all the properties of natural rock in a cave, and it's within this beautiful space he created a purpose-built darkroom specifically to offer this powerful experience to seekers. Now, Master Chia speaks of 4 distinct stages that take place in a prolonged darkness retreat. The first stage, usually the first few days of complete darkness, the pineal gland floods the brain with melatonin. Now, melatonin is a regulatory hormone that quiets the body and mind, usually to prepare it for sleep. In fact, the first few days in darkroom, the body needs to rest a lot from the overstimulation of the visual world. Melatonin is also associated with hibernation, and in humans, this can encourage the emergence of spiritual consciousness. Melatonin gradually accumulates in the brain, and you begin to experience the revelations of deep sleep in your waking consciousness. Now, sleep consciousness is a profound state of rejuvenation and reconnection to our divine source, and it's been said that the soul temporarily disengages during sleep to visit other dimensions and have experiences, which are remembered during the waking consciousness as dreams. The second stage in the darkroom experience, usually days 3 to 5, and when melatonin has reached certain levels, the body begins to produce something called piniline or piniline, affecting the neurotransmitters of the brain, permitting visions and dream states to emerge. Now, piniline has been shown to be a most powerful antioxidant, and it's normally activated in the womb and in lucid dreaming or even in near-death experiences. So in the darkroom, piniline can activate clairvoyant and clairaudient experiences. And it's at this time or this stage in the experience you might see light and visions. And I remember hearing music even when no music was being played. Moving deeper into the darkroom experience, probably by day 6 or 7, the pineal gland starts to produce an endogenous and internal release of 5-MeO-DMT. Now, this is a psychoactive tryptamine produced internally and expands the experiences of emotions, feelings, intuitions, and it's a real heart opener in terms of the emotions that are going to come up. 5-MeO-DMT switches on 40% more of the cerebral cortex and awakens the nervous system to become aware of itself. Hence the possibility of meta-programming the nervous system's biocomputer, activating healing. So often referred to as the period of darkness within the darkness, or the divine light, because at this stage, when 5-MeO-DMT is released, often a bright light is activated. In fact, I recall that at times it felt there was a huge strobe light or disco ball spinning in the room, and when I opened my eyes, there was nothing there. And when this bright light is activated, it encourages that kind of born-again mentality. Your spirit surges. The 5-MeO-DMT prepares the nervous system for the dimethylene tryptamine production, or DMT, in psychoactive milligram doses. And this happens usually when you stay beyond 8-9 days. There's this release of psychoactive DMT, which again is an endogenous hallucinogenic, and many people report being able to see in infrared and ultraviolet, like seeing another person's energy field across a dark room. And when DMT levels reach 25 milligram, the sensations become very, very visual. If you've ever experienced plant medicines such as ayahuasca, psilocybin, yopo, iboga, then you'll be familiar with the visual experiences of DMT. So at this stage, there's a true compassion and unconditional love for self and others that floods your system. And remember, this is all happening endogenously, while when you have a plant medicine experience, it almost catapults you out and can often shatter the lower energy fields. So remember, what I'm saying here is that DMT occurs naturally in humans, animals, and plants, particularly in the plants in South America. And it's usually associated with birth, death, near-death experiences, and spiritual awakenings. I'm just going to interrupt this podcast briefly to tell you about the 11-day Mind Power Challenge. Mental power is creative power. It gives you the ability to create for yourself. And if you want to understand how to utilize your mind effectively for good, then allow me to invite you to a free 11-day Mind Power Challenge. Over 11 days, I'll be sharing with you simple, powerful, and effective tools and techniques to awaken and harness the potential and creative power of your mind. It's completely free, and you can gain access by visiting www.thepossibilityhub.com. Now that you have an idea of what darkroom technology is, how it works, and its practice in many cultures throughout the ages, let me share a little about my own personal and powerful experience in the dark. Now, when we entered the darkroom space as a group, a central area with mats to sit and lie down on, surrounded by rooms on 2 floors, we had a few hours to unpack and familiarize ourselves with our space and home for the next 10 days. Less is best, so that you can remember where everything is, from what you'll be wearing to toiletries, pen and paper to write in the dark, and yes, that is possible. So after an introductory lecture and meditation, lights were out at 11 p.m. that first night. And when I say dark, it's pitch black. There's no devices with lights, no switches with any light emanating from them. Total darkness. In fact, there's no difference if your eyes are open or shut. You can't see a thing, let alone your hand in front of your face. In fact, I believe I had my eyes shut for most of the experience. My preparation for this experience had been quite thorough for several months, including fasting, cleansing my system of parasites, toxins, heavy metals. So I had lost weight when I weighed in when I arrived at the Darkroom retreat. I was down to about 49 kilos. And I was really proud and pleased when a blood test confirmed that I had indeed done a very good job of cleansing. I'd also been water fasting for quite a few days. So usually when doing an extended water fast, I've found that my energy starts to pick up by day 4. However, in this experience, I'd actually found myself becoming weaker and weaker each day. And although juice was served during the darkroom if you wanted it 3 times a day, I really wanted to immerse myself totally in the experience and switch my system more to being source-fed. Now, this is a term that Jasmine prefers rather than the term breatharian, which gives the impression that you're using air and breath to nourish yourself. And that name, breatharianism, was coined by Wiley Brooks, often referred to as the father of the breatharian movement. Wiley was first introduced to the world back in 1981, when he first appeared on the national TV show in the USA called That's Incredible, demonstrating his strength by lifting 1,100 pounds of weight, nearly 10 times his own body weight. As I said, Jasmine prefers to use the word source feeding. Other people say pranic living. And the way that I like to think about source feeding is finding a different way of fueling your system. So, for example, you fuel your car with petrol or gas, and now there's also the option to fuel your vehicle differently, with the electric cars becoming more popular. So think about it being the same for your system. You're using a different form of nourishment. And I will be speaking further about source feeding in future podcasts. So it's basically nourishing yourself through prana, through chi, and through cosmic energy. Now, what I found was I probably over-prepared my system for this darkroom experience. And so on day 3, I did surrender to a couple of sips of green juice, and it was incredible the way that I felt my energy lift and I became alive again. Now, our routine each day, we were called into the central area if we chose to go, or we could stay in our rooms. So there was a gong to signal the morning lecture, question time, and meditation. And the discussions, the questions, the meditations were deep and nourishing in themselves. They were engaging, whether you were awake or asleep. They fed you in a different way. And later in the day, there would be sacred sounds and music to bathe in, or qigong, or movement and dancing. And then, of course, an evening meditation. And during the whole experience, we were encouraged all to go into stasis, to minimize talking, to go into silence, stillness, and solitude as much as possible. So there was very little chit-chat going on unless you literally bumped into someone else. And of course, that is a regular occurrence if you're moving around, whether you're going for more water or going to get a juice. If I consider my way of being many years ago, in this kind of experience, I would have become really bored, irritated, impatient, a kind of, are we done yet? Are we nearly there attitude? Yet over the years, I've grown to love stillness, silence, solitude, and really enjoy and cherish my own company immensely. That's how I recharge my batteries. So in the dark, the concept of time and space disappears. With no outer stimulation, no devices, it's a time to look within. And what you find are that after the first few days of rest and additional sleep, the opposite happens after a few days. And you find that very little sleep is required, so I would meditate or stretch slowly and languidly on my yoga mat. It really brought new meaning to the word mindfulness and the immense pleasure of slowing everything down to just be, allowing the mind to wander freely, and wander it did. For me, it was as if I was in a cave of creation, and when I did open my eyes, I would see that cave. I would see a cave of rock and pebbles. And when I considered the rock and the pebbles, we're going back to the first element, the elementals, the first elements of consciousness. If you think of crystals, they come from the earth. These are the first points of consciousness. And even you and me are made up of elementals. So it really was as if I was returning to the very source of creation and the creation of my own being. The native Mexican shamans that anthropologist Carlos Castaneda writes about in his many books and met and spent time with encourages the practice of recapitulation. And Carlos Castaneda's many books describe his training in shamanism and are based on his experiences under the guidance of a shaman called Don Juan Matus. And it's Don Juan that teaches Carlos about recapitulation. To recapitulate is to relive every or nearly every experience that you've ever had. And as a formal procedure done in ancient times, that meant recollecting every person you knew and every experience in which they had taken part. So essentially, it's a review of your life. Among other things, recapitulation is a technique used to regain energy and awareness and to remove the turmoil caused by interactions with other people. As Carlos Castaneda mentioned in his book, Journey to Ixtlan, the thoughts of others can keep you pinned down and affect your life. The sorcerers claim that every interaction you have with people is an exchange of energy. They say that you leave energy imprints on those you interact with, and that foreign energy from those interactions is also left in you. The more emotional the situation, the more energy you've lost or left in the situation and in the other person. So if you think of the feeling of being drained of energy after an argument or after talking at length with particular people, you can see how this is a verifiable energy loss. As I went through recapitulation of my own life, what made this experience even more impactful was that even though I thought I was complete, that I'd gone through and touched on every person and experience in my life, I found that even towards the end of my time in the darkroom, I found people and experiences coming into my awareness unbidden that I had at one time found to be really important in my life. And I was surprised that I'd forgotten or deleted those people and experiences from my conscious awareness. And even now, a few weeks after coming out of the darkroom, I'm still integrating this experience and will find another wave of recall sweeping across me. And just for a moment, consider that it's said that when you pass away or die, or when you make your transition of consciousness, as I prefer to refer to it as, that there's a period of reviewing your life. Now imagine if you've already been through that experience through recapitulation. The last 24 hours in the darkroom were particularly intense and powerful as we deepened our practice of silence, stillness, and solitude, with no gatherings or meditations in the central area. So during this time, I experimented with a number of breathwork techniques that I'm familiar with, and I experienced so much light. This is when I felt that there was that strobe light beaming in. But by far the most powerful moment for me was when we were led out of the darkroom. Because as we made our way through all the blackout curtains and the doors to a corridor, I felt a huge wave of emotion ripple through me, and asked to name if it was sadness, joy, excitement. It would be impossible to label it. And so as others emerged out of the darkroom, I noticed they all walked to the left, and I purposely walked to the right to allow the tears of emerging from this cave of creation to flow freely and bathe in the richness of nature, sunlight, and this feeling of rebirth. Now, even though we have so many words available to describe our experiences, the most profound experiences are always beyond words. And so it's challenging to explain the magnitude and impact of the darkroom and my personal experience. And I remember going to Ecuador probably over 12, 13 years ago to spend time with the Achua, a remote indigenous tribe in the rainforest. And it was only in hindsight do I know now what a life-changing journey that was and how it's guided me ever since. And I rather suspect that over the weeks and months as I integrate this experience of rebirth, and even in this short time, incredible synchronicities have already happened in my life, that this, like my journey deep into the Ecuadorian rainforest, will prove to be a pivotal time in my life that continues to give me many gifts. So as well as dramatically altering the chemistry in our brain as we awaken the awareness of source within us and allow ourselves into the cocoon of darkness and inner space, the light appears from within. And I feel immense gratitude for this deeply, deeply nourishing and profound experience that I will be facilitating for other people as well, and I know I will be journeying back into darkroom. As Adrienne Rich said, the beauty of darkness is how it lets you see. Or as Rumi said, darkness is your candle, your boundaries are your quest. Thank you for tuning into this episode, and I'm delighted to be sharing possibilities with you. If you'd like to know more about the possibility of experiencing darkroom technology yourself, then please connect with me through thepossibilityhub.com, and also check out the link on that website to the free 11-day Mind Power Challenge, or tune in to my YouTube channels, The Possibility Hub or Carol Talbot, for new insightful interviews each week. If you feel that others can benefit from listening in, then please share, review, or like or follow me on Instagram, Carol K. Talbot. Remember, you're always more than you think you are.